Hey, hello, what's up, and welcome into the Geek Garage podcast, where this week we want to believe. We are setting up for the second half of 2020. It has not been the best year on record so far, but we're trying to truck right along with the positivity. And in the second half of the year, we're going to be going over something that we're calling the Informal Paranormal. David and I had discussed this idea previously of covering different paranormal topics or conspiracy theories. Since he does all the social media, he was kind enough to throw up a post on ye old Facebook. They got a lot of traction. David,
Yep.
talk about the traction it got.
It got a lot of traction. Back to you, Ted.
All
No, I'm
right.
just playing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Excellent analysis as always. It did, in fact, get a lot of traction. That's the third time we said it. That's the charm. And we thought, hey, we might be onto something. So we put our heads together, and our last four cumulative brain cells got to work. And we decided that based on the engagement and based on the breadth of information and different conspiracy theories, we decided to make this an ongoing series for the next 6 months or so. So we plan to do probably one episode a month, maybe more. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the engagement is like on the ye old downloads.
Yes.
Um,
So if there wasn't enough fucking conspiracy, true crime, and paranormal podcasts out there, you get one more.
yes, from two
Sort of.
more average ass white folk.
Yes.
Thank you as always for listening. But before we get started with the insanity of Informal Paranormal, a few quick notes from Mr. David.
Yes. So we are trucking right along, also with Comic Corner. If you haven't been listening to the podcast in a while, or you are brand new to the podcast, Comic Corner is a reoccurring blog post that we have started to put out where Ted and I review certain comic book runs, series, volumes, etc. And we just released our second issue, and that was Ted's review of Ted. It was the Punisher Max series, right?
Yes, The Punisher by Garth Ennis, the first 60 issues, which has been informally called The Punisher Max, although actually, technically, that's not the correct title.
Sure. But yes, that was actually published today, Tuesday, the 7th of July. And so if you'd like to go read Ted's thoughts and feelings and reviews on that series of The Punisher, then go hit up geekgaragepodcast.com. It is there for your reading pleasure.
Or displeasure.
Yes, I mean, if you disagree with it, or if you like reading to hate yourself, then please go right ahead and do so, I guess. Uh, but yes, and like Ted said earlier in the intro, we do have our Facebook group where we have polls. We have conversations where you can make fun of other people in a lighthearted manner for their um, uh, uh, stupid opinions on geeky stuff, and tell them about how your opinions are better. Um, but of course, it's all in good fun. It's also where we do a lot of promotion for the podcast and the Comic Corner and other blog posts, other content. So go hit us up on the Facebook group page. If you'd like to be a member, go ahead and click the join button after searching. We also have our regular Facebook page. We're on Twitter, Instagram, etc. We have our Patreon. Thank you to our current subscribers of our Patreon account. We appreciate your support as always. If you would like to support us, it is pretty cheap to do so. It's only we have two tiers. We have a $2 tier and a $5 tier, and they come with all kinds of cool perks, like getting to become a official Geek Garage like advisor, where we have like little think tank sessions where we talk about upcoming episodes. When we uh, game plan and whatnot for new logos and t-shirt designs and all that. That's where that goes down as well. We haven't had too many of them yet because we're trying to build up our Patreon subscribers. And once we do, we will be having tons of those. So, yes, if you'd like to go support us monetarily, then please feel free to do so.
Yes, I would like to interject here, David, if I may.
Yeah, go ahead.
To the, I'm assuming, well-meaning troll of our Patreon subscribers who suggested that we do a watch along of Wild at Heart. I want to say first, thank you. That's brilliant. And second of all, do you hate David? Like, really hate him?
Hey, I mean, I'm a fan of David Lynch. Like, I'm not the biggest fan, but um, I mean, hey, it's Nicky Cage and like what? There's like a slew of other people in there, other
Yes,
like really well known actors like
yes. In a
Willem
snakeskin
Dafoe.
jacket.
Yes, and so I haven't watched it yet, but yes, thank you, Ted, for kind of bringing that up tangentially because that is one of the perks that you get if you subscribe to the $5 tier is you get to pick a movie we do for a watch along episode, and that was actually Zach's pick. Zach has been on the podcast a couple times up until this point. He's a longtime fan, listener, and friend of the podcast, and we appreciate his support. We appreciate all the other patrons' support. So yeah, if you are interested in that kind of thing, like forcing Ted and or I, well, both of us, to watch movies that we may not enjoy, and have to do an episode about it, then that is your avenue to do so. I encourage you to spend that $5 and then force Ted to watch like an Avengers movie or something that
How
he
dare you?
will. How dare I give them ideas?
But yes, hopefully you will pick a movie a little less dense than Wild at Heart. Although I am a fan, so I'm not against it necessarily. I just, what an odd choice. What an odd
Hey,
choice. That's all I have to say.
I mean, by my understanding, he hadn't watched it yet either. I think he found it somewhere and like picked it up and was like, "This movie looks like crap. I'm gonna force them to watch it because I give them my hard-earned money every month."
Which is fair.
Uh, it in fact is fair. So yeah. But we've babbled on for too long and taken up too much of your precious time.
It is an
Now on
evergreen tweet.
Now, on to waste more of your time, we shall cue the music and get down to the nitty gritty. Starting now.
Yes. So since this is part one of the series, we will be keeping it pretty light.
Yep.
We don't want to shoot our wad too early.
No,
That's what
definitely
she
not.
said. So, we'll just be covering some of our favorite paranormies. I don't know what that means from childhood, which we may still believe in today, and that may be truly ridiculous, like all conspiracy theories kind of are.
Mm-hmm.
As said, this all started with a Facebook poll. And the question was, what paranormal conspiracies were you into the most as a kid, and possibly are still now? Feel free to add your own to the list if I, meaning David, who wrote the question, did not list it. The choices that he came up with were aliens, the Bermuda Triangle, ghosts, Bigfoot, the occult, very vague, zombies, not a conspiracy, and the Loch Ness Monster. Not a terrible list, all told. We did have some very, let's say, intriguing
Options that were
write-in
added.
responses. Yeah.
Yeah, this was actually a perfect opportunity to fuck up the poll, quote unquote, and give people the option to write in their own options, I guess. Like I've messed up polls in the past where I didn't want our fans, listeners, to be able to add in their own stuff, not because I hate them or to spite them,
But also those
obviously,
reasons. No, I'm sorry.
but
No, that's not right.
it just didn't make sense in the context of those polls. However, with this one, I knew I wasn't going to be able to think of all of them. And of course, if you just throw out the term conspiracy theory, it is obviously very vague, very wide cast net. So that's why we're kind of narrowing down the conspiracy theories to the paranormal. Um, and yeah, so um, Ted, do you want me to cover the ones that were added in, or do you want me to kick it back to you to?
No, by all means, David. Go ahead and list some of those write-in options, if you would, please.
Sure thing. Some of the options that were added to the list were black holes as space time warps. And that was added by our good friend John Aker. Shout out to John. Shauna Hoyt, a good friend and longtime listener and thrice guest of the podcast, she said all of the conspiracies.
Yes, she
Um,
clearly misunderstood the question.
but we appreciate her input nonetheless. Yeah. Um, our good buddy Dwayne Long suggested lost civilizations. Um, our friend Drew Norman said Han shot first, which
Not a
is
conspiracy. That's cold hard fact.
and not paranormal,
Yes.
unless you're talking about if you want to loop sci-fi into paranormal. But
No,
um,
but since he is a Han truther, I'm going to let him have this one.
yeah. Um, and then spontaneous combustion was suggested by Mimi Bot. Fuck. Oh my god. I'm gonna fuck up her name.
Talia, I
Ted
believe.
Tog
Our
Batogli.
Mimi the Bat person.
Mimi. She was on our previous episode.
Yes.
She was on cosplay part 2.
We should really
where
know this.
we should, but I am dense as fuck. I was dropped on my head too many times, and I can't remember shit. It's quite a wonder how I still have like a job and stuff. I don't know how that happened. But anyways, she suggested spontaneous combustion, and then Travis Gill and my brother-in-law suggested aliens in Antarctica. I actually had to pick his brain about this one because it didn't really ring any bells, but it's actually quite intriguing. So I think this one might get an episode all on its own.
Yes, there's an excellent documentary on this called John Carpenter's The Thing.
Is it really? Fuck. God damn it. Okay. Have I mentioned lately that I'm clearly doing great?
Yeah, that's come up several times.
All
As
right.
of this afternoon, July the 7th, the Bermuda Triangle was in a pretty handy first place, which is
Mm-hmm.
somewhat surprising, personally, but not a terrible choice. I think that's a pretty big conspiracy, and I know growing up in the halcyon days of the 1990s, that was like kind
Mm-hmm.
of the big conspiracy, as I recall, at least in terms of things like that.
Right. Yeah. Back before the internet was commonplace, and there was no sort of social media. Social media was basically those little folding papers that you make in like study hall, and then you flip around, and then you get to the end and you peel off the. Anyways, yeah. Suffice it to say, Bermuda Triangle it won. Not handily, but it did beat out the others by a couple of votes. Ghosts and aliens kind of came in a close second and third. But yeah, like I definitely understand Ted, kind of like you were saying, it makes sense for the Bermuda Triangle to be to kind of come in first or to rank high, because like we were talking about this earlier today, like how it was one of those things where it was like kind of neat to think about, like this giant section of the fucking ocean where shit just disappeared. Like ships are just
Yeah.
going like la di da di da. Oh god, they're gone.
Yeah. Back in the day, we just called that the ocean.
Yes. And in fact, that's basically what it boiled down to. I did like just some boilerplate, skim the surface research on the Bermuda Triangle earlier today while I should have been working, and it turns out that it was not that difficult in like the fucking 60s and 70s to disprove the bullshit that is the Bermuda Triangle.
Yeah. Basically, learn to read a compass. Bermuda Triangle no exist anymore. That's I don't know. Like, yeah, it's. I'm gonna go ahead and drop this out there for all of our listeners. I think conspiracy theories are a ton of fun. I might be considered a conspiracy theorist in some circles, although typically those are somewhat more serious than the Bermuda Triangle.
Mhm.
Um, However, hardcore conspiracy theorists are fucking unbearable to be around.
In
So,
fact, they are.
yeah. So, I can't speak for David, but for me personally, I'm going to be coming at this very tongue in cheek. So if I say something that offends you about your pet conspiracy theory, just deal with it. Just deal with it.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, I was a huge fan of the Bermuda Triangle, like growing up as a kid. Like, and I guess this is a pretty decent point to segue into our first, or I guess second segment, if we want to call the Facebook group poll thing our first segment. Second segment, we're going to talk about stuff that the paranormal conspiracy theory type stuff that we really were into as kids, because back then we tend to have really big imaginations. You know, the sky's the limit, especially for like the 80s and 90s kids, where you like sci-fi and horror movies are huge. You don't have the internet yet, so like you don't have like all these facts and stuff like readily available like you do today, like where you can just hop on the internet and 20 seconds later you can like disprove something. So yeah. Ted, like what what were some of the things like growing up that you were kind of into, on the paranormal side? Like, were you more into like aliens and stuff like kind of covered in the X Files, or were you more of like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster kind of shit?
I've always been somewhat of a skeptic.
Okay.
At least as far back as I can remember. I mean, like I said, I think conspiracy theories are a lot of fun. That's true, but I don't know that I ever really had any that I believed in
Hmm.
necessarily. Um, I mean, like aliens, I definitely think aliens exist. So I guess that one. I don't necessarily believe in like little green men, so to speak, or like interdimensional lizard people.
Sure.
But I
Zorp the lizard god.
yes, Zorp,
Hail
the lizard,
Zorp.
Hail Zorp. Um, but I mean, I think it's kind of arrogant to assume we're the only thing in the universe, at least that's like sentient and whatnot. So,
Right.
but I mean, like I never believed in ghosts. You know what I mean? Like all my friends were like, "Oh, ghosts scare." I'm like, dumb. Like, you know. I've always been a bastard and a party pooper. So, um, but I mean, yeah, like so definitely stuff like aliens and UFOs, and of course the X Files was like a touchstone
Hmm.
for
It's one of the best shows of all time.
yeah, it's good.
And it holds up really well. Like, if you go back and watch like the first couple of episodes, it's still fucking scary.
Yeah, I mean, there's some stuff that doesn't age super well, but I mean that's any show. We're gonna look back in
Sure.
20 years, and there's gonna be shows now where we're like that did not age well.
Yeah.
Just because technology is gonna
Hap-
get better, or
right.
you know,
Happens with everything
for sure. So things
except
like that.
John Carpenter stuff.
Yeah, well, you um, so I mean, stuff like that can be forgiven, but I mean, like I said, basically, in terms of conspiracies or paranormal stuff, like I just kind of was. It was always fun for me. I don't know that there were ever I really any, or excuse me, I don't know that there were ever I really truly believed in, so to
Hmm.
speak.
Gotcha. Yeah, I was definitely into aliens the most. Like, that was kind of my jam. I wasn't to the point where I was like, I want to be abducted, because they still scared the bejesus out of me. But I was definitely like an alien guy. Um, Ghosts, and like Bigfoot, um, they weren't really my thing. Ghosts, I mean, like they kind of were. I mean, they were definitely scary to me, and I thought that they could be real, and I still think that they could be real. I thought the Loch Ness monster was kind of interesting, although I never really looked too heavily into the lore of the Loch Ness monster. I know it's kind of been a tale or a fable, whatever you want to call it, for quite a while. Um, but yeah, I definitely say that aliens and like the Bermuda Triangle, that giant piece of ocean where ships disappear and airplanes and stuff, aliens, um, you know, those things were kind of my jam. Um, would you say that there's anything that has like carried over from childhood into your adulthood that you're like still into, or maybe like you weren't really into as a kid, or didn't believe in back then, but you kind of do now?
I mean, definitely like, excuse me, definitely like aliens and UFOs and a lot of space stuff. Really,
Yeah.
um, just like the vastness of space and the unknown is just like so heavy. You know what I mean? And
Hmm.
it's just, um, like I said, I definitely believe in aliens, even outside of like a conspiracy theory type stuff. But I would say that as I've gotten older, some of the conspiracy theories around aliens and UFOs have become more interesting to me. Not
Hmm.
more believable by any stretch, but like more interesting to listen to. I know there was a pretty big documentary out last year or maybe earlier this year, about a guy who said that he worked at Area 51, and that's another big one. Like I love Area 51.
Oh, the Bob Lazar.
Yeah, Bob Lazar.
Yeah.
Thank you. I couldn't remember his name. And I mean, it's obviously bullshit, but it's really interesting bullshit.
Yeah, that that is a very polarizing, divisive one. Like there are some people that are like, I can't believe that you don't believe what he's saying. And then there's people that are like, come on, dude.
Right.
Like,
I can't believe that you do believe it.
right, like he is so fucking vague. And like I tried to listen to his interview on Rogan.
Mm,
It didn't help the fact that it was like 5 hours long. And God bless this dude. Like he came on, like they had planned this for like such a long period of time, and he comes on and like he had a migraine, like a killer migraine apparently the whole time, and so like he was like struggling to get through all of his recounting of his story, which I mean it wasn't too hard for him to do because he had talked about it for so many times. And but but yeah, like that's definitely one I'm looking forward to sitting down with and looking into just for curiosity's sake. You know, whether I'll end up believing it or not, who knows? But yeah, like you said, that's definitely one of the more popular contemporary, like I guess evidentiary, you know, things that
mm.
so.
Um, but yeah, aliens for sure. I've been to Roswell a couple of times,
Okay.
um, and just I like aliens, man. I don't know.
Nah, yeah, I mean, I do too. Roswell was and still is one of those places that I'd like to go.
for some other stuff, like cryptids, and like cryptozoology, so stuff like Bigfoot, Loch Ness Monster. That's interesting because I had a really big like phase where I was super into like biology and zoology.
Hmm.
So I'm interested in all that. Like I don't, but like again, like I said, I've always been a skeptic. So I really wanted to be Mulder, but I was definitely Scully. You know,
Yeah,
you know.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, Bigfoot was always kind of a weird one. Like I never really put too much stock in it. Be, Probably because by the time I actually started reading up on like real, quote unquote, real, like, you know, testimonies of people seeing Bigfoot and stuff, like it had already become a parody. Like,
Right.
you know, in like movies and TV shows and stuff, people making fun of the way that, you know, the Bigfoot footage that you see, like the, you know, the blurry, you know, dude in a, in a Wookiee costume or some shit.
Basically, yeah.
Um, and so by the time I started digging into the seriousness of it, it was kind of already spoiled for me, just being made fun of. So it was kind of hard to take it super seriously. um Kind of the same with the Loch Ness monster, because every time I think about it, I think of that scene in Napoleon Dynamite where he gets up in front of the class and he's like, they want to blow our underwater ally out of the water. I'm trying to raise money for Nessie. So yeah. But that's its own thing. You want to talk about a couple of the ones that were kind of referred to us by our friends and fans and listeners on the Facebook poll?
Yeah, yeah, sure. One thing I want to say is I'm kind of surprised that there were a couple that weren't mentioned that I was kind of surprised weren't mentioned, like the
Okay.
Mothman.
Yeah, yeah, that was one that I thought of after the fact, and I was like, "Oh man, I can't believe," because that was a big one from my childhood.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised about that. I was kind of surprised that nobody brought up the Jersey Devil. I was kind of surprised that nobody brought up the Chupacabra.
Oh yeah,
But again, that's another one that's kind of gone from like lore almost into like parody. There have been so
hmm
many like parodies of that and different things.
right.
So
It's kind of like meme status
yeah,
now.
it's kind of mimetic. Um, for stuff that did get brought up, like black holes as space warps or time warps, um, like I don't. Are we saying that that's a conspiracy theory or like because
So I'm not sure if John put if it was a typo and he meant to say black holes and space time warps, or if it really meant black holes as space time warps.
well, I mean, there's kind of like the discussion about how they could be used as like wormholes, and I'm pretty sure that
hmm
was basically like the plot of Interstellar was using black
Right.
holes as a means of time travel,
Yeah.
and definitely some other stuff. Like it's a pretty like base level sci-fi trope, um,
Yeah.
but I mean, there's some pretty significant science behind that too. So I mean, it's not. Yeah, what's the famous quote of any sufficiently advanced science is indistinguishable from magic. Um,
hmm
we'll put a pin in that one, man. But there may be some truth to that. I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, I'd be fucking down if that that shit was real.
Shit,
Like,
shit, sign me up, bro. I don't care.
right? Be like, hey,
I'm trying to pimp slap a velociraptor.
right? Like me and Elon Musk, we can be bros. Like, I'll buy
Right.
a Tesla, and if that means we can be friends, and hop on
Shoot that shit into deep space. Let's do that.
right,
I saw Event
exactly.
Horizon. I'm not scared.
I heard that movie's pretty legit.
it's it's a movie.
Okay.
Uh,
Yes.
Lost Civilizations. This is another interesting one. Like Atlantis, and I think that's probably the most famous one, at least in the U.S. That's probably the most famous one. But there are some other ones, like the
Right.
Lost City of El Dorado, the City of Gold. Um, that's a really interesting one that I'm glad somebody brought up because there's a bunch of cool shit about that. And I remember this may still be going on, but I remember for a long time people would like try to prove that these had existed and they'd have different theories about like where it was, like, oh, it was in the Mediterranean, like Atlantis was in the Mediterranean and then it like sank and that's where the Mediterranean Sea is now. And I'm like, then how was it in the fucking Mediterranean if the sea is there now? Like that doesn't make sense. And Drew, Han shooting first, not a conspiracy. All right, it's on tape. It's on tape. I just can't. On the one hand, I think that's a great answer because that's funny as shit, but it's like there's video. All right, it's like the moon landing, spontaneous combustion. This is another interesting one, um,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
again, like so many of these, and probably all conspiracy theories. Really, I'll just go ahead and throw that out. So many people have tried so hard to prove them,
Right.
and I love the explanations because they go from like, huh, that actually kind of makes a little bit of sense to this person needs to stop smoking drugs.
Right. Like, please get off the acid. Spontaneous combustion. I'm glad that Mimi brought this one up and wrote it in because I remember having a book of like paranormal conspiracies as a kid, and I remember like stuff like the chupacabra and aliens and spontaneous combustion being in it. And that was the very first time I learned about spontaneous combustion. I like went to my parents like pale faced and I was like, Mom, Dad, did you know that some people like just blow up out of nowhere? And they're like, what the fuck are you talking
All right,
about?
that's it. No more
they're
HBO for you.
right. They're like, what the like, you have friends. Like, go play with your friends, dumbass.
Right.
Quit
Be
thinking
a
about
normal 8-year-old for fuck's sake.
right. Quit thinking.
Right. How dare you?
Right. First of all, how dare you? Um, and no, I thought it was after I got over myself about it, and started to process my thoughts and feelings on spontaneous combustion. I did think that
Speak
it
your
was
truth, brother.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, whether or not it actually is real and it happens, who knows? But it'd be, I mean, hey, if someone could like fucking harness that as a power, like the Human Torch, who was denied a bank loan, um, you could just flame on. Anyways, next one.
Yes, that is what the Human Torch's famous catchphrase is. Uh,
Yes.
Aliens in
Uh,
Antarctica is a really interesting one. We joked about the thing a little bit ago, but there's some shit in Antarctica that might very well be alien related.
yeah. No, I definitely felt like an ass in the intro when or not in the intro or just earlier when we talked about this and you were like, yeah, like the thing, like the 2 or 3 episodes that we talked about the thing. Um, but yeah, I like I said before, I aside from the thing, I don't have too much common knowledge about this one. So I'd have to do my research. Ted, do you other than, some rudimentary surface level stuff, do you know a whole lot about this one?
I mean, I wouldn't say I know a whole lot about it. I know that every couple of years, scientists find something in the ice, and there's a big discussion of like, is it an alien that has been frozen in the ice? And it never is, and I'm always kind of disappointed just a little bit.
Hmm.
I think just actually recently they found something on a dig um, that I saw on the Twitter where they were talking about like they found some kind of worm or something I think frozen in the ice. I'm sure one of our listeners is really out there right now, like, well, actually, um, hitting me with that. But I'm pretty sure that they found something recently. I'll have to check back with that. But Antarctica is a really both poles are really. I don't know. I just think there's so much about our world that we don't know, and that's
Oh
frightening to
yeah.
me.
Yeah, it's why I don't go in the fucking ocean because it's fucking terrifying. Like, have you ever seen an anglerfish?
Yeah,
Like, it looks like the goddamn devil.
yeah. There are three things in the world that human beings should not fuck with: electricity, fire, and the ocean, because all three of them will kill your ass dead
Yes, I mean the things
in
that
as
swim in the
painful a way as possible.
right. I mean, like things that swim in the ocean, they don't grow legs spontaneously, walk up on the land and start fucking with humans.
No, you got
Uh,
to go there. What kind of arrogant shit is that?
in 2020, I would believe it. Like all of a sudden, some fucking fish would like
Yes,
grow legs and
that's actually the reason we did this informal paranormal series, or we're starting this informal paranormal series, because by the end of 2020, all this shit will be real.
right, like Darwin is just gonna speed up the process light years, so like it happens like fucking overnight instead of over a millennia. um, but yeah, man, fucking electricity, fire, and ocean. Yeah, that's the dark trifecta,
Yeah.
if you will.
Like I said, all that shit will kill you dead. I'm not saying
It
don't
will.
ever use it. Like fire, great thing, change the course of humanity. Electricity, great thing when harnessed, change the course of humanity. Still will fuck your whole life up.
Hmm.
Ocean,
Yes.
beautiful, majestic, terrifying. There's a lot of ways you can describe it. Will fuck your day up.
Yeah. God damn, the ocean is. Yeah. This is kind of harping back to the good old Bermuda Triangle. I think that's one of the reasons why I found it so interesting, intriguing, and terrifying was that like it kind of like the ocean wasn't fucking scary enough. You
You had to
pile
make it
on top of
scarier somehow.
right, like you know, uh, it kind of reminds me of like just randomly that did I send you that website where you like all it is
Yes,
you scroll and get
yes,
to the different levels of the ocean and
yes.
like yeah I wish now that I bring it up I kind of wish I had the link for it. I could drop it in the show notes. Maybe I could Google it afterwards and see if I can find it. But yeah, there's a website out there if you can find it. It's pretty mobile friendly. So if you view it on your phone, but like you basically just scroll like you would on a Facebook or Twitter news feed, and the water just gets darker and darker, and it gives you like milestones. Like this is where the farthest that humans got in the 30s, and then the 40s, and then this is how this is where light can refract the most before going pitch black, and then this is where all the fucking fish become translucent and they
Right.
light up like a fucking
This is where
light
the
show.
devil lives.
Exactly, like this is where the angler fish is gonna eat your fucking soul.
Yes. Yeah, that's a really interesting website. Hopefully, you can find it and drop it in the show notes. I
Yeah.
mentioned the poles a few minutes ago, the Arctic and the Antarctic. I'm kind of surprised nobody brought up Hollow Earth
Yeah.
or
Yeah,
Flat
kind
Earth for that matter.
those are
Although,
kind of beat to death.
yeah, I'm kind of glad nobody brought up Flat Earth because we would have to ban them from listening to the show.
And plus they're not, well, I mean, I don't know, is there any kind of paranormal element to those
Oh,
at
they're just
all?
like conspiracy theories.
Yeah. I mean, no, I'm not necessarily saying that there has to be for this poll in particular, because so many of our listeners and fans clearly followed the directions when I said paranormal, and listed shit like Han shot first.
We'll cover all of these and more, a little more in depth. Like I said, we're gonna probably do 6-ish episodes. I think one a month for the rest of the year on these. I think is what
Yeah.
we decided. So we'll
Yeah.
cover some more of these in depth with even worse jokes. So yay!
Exactly.
Before we sign off and disgrace, there are several shows that have been around that are some of them still around, some of them back around about different conspiracy theories or paranormal events. David, should we talk about some of those?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up because I totally forgot about it up until
You're
now.
doing great.
I know, right? So, of course, there is the renowned, well known, well beloved Unsolved Mysteries,
Recently
which was,
rebooted on Netflix.
yes. And I guess we can use this moment to kind of talk about shit that doesn't suck conjunctually, if that's a word. I don't know.
It is
But
now.
like, okay, cool. Well, this is my shit that doesn't suck. And but we can go ahead and just talk about this thing as well. The new Unsolved Mysteries. If you haven't watched it yet, it's pretty goddamn good. I watched the first 2 episodes, and I had to watch like 15 episodes of The Office afterwards in order to go to
Kind of
bed.
come back down.
Yes, like I turned the TV off afterwards, and man, it was a long walk up the stairs. I was trying to be really careful so none of the ghosts or ghoulies didn't get me, because yeah, it creeped the bejesus out of me. So the reboot from what I've seen so far is really good. Um, and then of course there's Ted, did you watch Unsolved Mysteries at all when it was on, like the original series?
Yeah, it wasn't my favorite show about stuff like that, but I do remember it, and like you, I watched a little bit of the new series on Netflix. I watched the UFO episode first because obviously,
Right.
and I thought it was, it definitely still had that same vibe,
Hmm.
in a good way. Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, so I definitely dug it. I was always more of a Beyond Belief guy.
Yeah. Yeah. That was my jam.
Yeah, that was my shit growing up. I also kind of liked Ripley's Believe It or Not, even though Dean Cain turned out to be a real piece of work.
What was the deal with that dude? Was he? I don't even remember what what happened to him. What? Uh.
He just sucks. Basically.
All right.
Yeah.
Uh, isn't he like a huge racist piece of shit? Or am
Basically.
I?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was like, I think I'm thinking of the right dude.
Yeah.
Um,
He was Superman, and that has killed Superman for me.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Um,
Hosted for many of the seasons by Commander Riker himself, Jonathan Frakes, which is
mhm.
what got me into it to start.
Right.
But it was legitimately just a fun show.
Yeah.
Of
Yeah,
course,
I kind of forgot the premise of it. Like for some reason I thought that Beyond Belief, Fact or Fiction, and Unsolved Mysteries were kind of like one and the same. They just maybe they just had like different hosts, and Beyond Belief was a little bit more updated and contemporary for its time. But I totally forgot about the thing where they had separate anthologies within a single episode, and a couple of them would be true, and a couple of
yeah,
them would be
false.
fiction.
Yeah.
Hence the subtitle Fact or Fiction, and so I totally forgot about that fucking part. I was like, oh yeah, like I remember. I would always like get it wrong. I knew that because I was an idiot and still am. Um, but yeah, that was definitely my jam too.
Of course, there was the X Files, which we talked about, and we'll talk about more because it's the fucking X Files.
Right.
Um, and then the granddaddy of them all, in my opinion, the radio show Coast to Coast AM, which I used to listen to like fucking religiously,
Oh yeah.
and still do. Excuse me, to a lesser extent. But that's what really got me hooked into conspiracy theories. Again, like I said, I've always been a skeptic, but I've always had fun with them. And Coast to Coast covered and covers everything.
Hmm.
So check it out. It's still going, as far as I know, and probably will never end at this point. But yeah, Coast to Coast fucking rules.
Right on. Yeah. Did you see that video floating around not too long ago of remind me of the host's name of Beyond Belief? You said he
Jonathan
was,
Frakes.
yeah. Um, someone slowed it down to make him sound drunk. And like it applied to like everything that he said, because it's like the beginning of every single like anthology segment where it's like, have you ever been hiking? Do you ever go on a bike ride?
Yes, I have seen that. It is great.
Yeah, it's so fun. And then like someone did a regular one of those where it wasn't slowed down, and it's like, this is what life in quarantine is like when you have kids. It's just like fucking question after question after question. I'm like, god damn, that is so fucking accurate. Have you ever been mountain biking? Have you ever been hiking? Have you ever been to the bottom of the ocean?
That's
Oh
pretty good.
god. Yeah, it was pretty funny. Anyways, well, shall we relieve our listeners of our painful existence?
Yes, existence is pain. Thank you as always for listening. God knows why you do it, but we appreciate
Yes.
it. Check us out on geekgaragepodcast.com. All the links to the different social media sites are there, including the Facebook group, I believe, Fans of the Geek Garage Podcast, where the poll that we talked about earlier was listed, as well as a lot of other things that David and I have mentioned over the episode.
Yep.
Please check us out. We're available on all of the different podcast streaming platforms like Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify. If we're not on it, we'd like to be, unless it costs money to be on it, in which case, get that bougie shit up out my face.
Precisely.
Like us, leave a review, lie in the review and say that we're good, even though God knows we're not. We would appreciate that. That would get us all that sweet, sweet sponsorship money that so far has evaded us.
Yes, that's why we have a Patreon.
Yes, because we're not good enough to get money from corporations. We have to beg. Um, we do have the Patreon. Thank you, Dave, for bringing that up. If you have liked what you've heard for some reason, you can check us out on Patreon. Tiers start at $2 a month, which, if you can afford that, you're better than me. Nope, wasn't supposed to say that part out loud. That's not that much money. So if you can drop a couple of bucks, that's basically like buying a cup of coffee, although you should probably do that for some more worthy cause than us. Self-defeating. Anyway, thank you for tuning in. We will catch you next time. Same pod channel, same pod time.
Is that our new sign off?
No.
I think it's always be kind, stay geeky, and eat lots of cheesecake, right?
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
Do
we'll
the
go with
movies
that then.
Nope.
It's not even a fucking movie episode. All right. right, everyone. We'll talk to you later.
Do
Bye.
the cheesecake thing. I can't believe people subscribe to this fucking podcast.
God bless.
Welcome to the Geek Garage Therapy Hour. We're sorry.
That's gonna be our new sign-off line. Thank you for listening. We're sorry.
Bring me the head of the bastard god.